Go on the countdown now. Oops.
And tomorrow we're with Uncle Earl.
We're live.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Well, we're on?
Yes.
Just a moment, please. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Catechesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you're not. And I don't even know what to say to that intro.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay, this is Carrie's fault.
It is. It totally is.
No, come on. If it's somebody's fault, it's got to be me because,
No.
A, I'm not bright. But I think we all know today is a huge day. Huge day. Because pitchers and catchers report. I think there's also a religious holiday of some sort. And if the bishop's watching, I'm kidding. But not really. Speaking of the bishop, tomorrow, we will be with Bishop Earl Boyer, superstar action figure, miter sold separately, and we're going to have a great sit down with him, and I can't wait. But I got to tell you, I'm very excited to have Brent Green here. He was one of our donors to the Shave It Save It. I can't say much. Can I tell him what you... he was a Save It guy, which means he loves Jesus. Unlike, I'm not going to be rude, but you people. Right. And made a big donation toward the Save It. Which
very exciting.
Yes, and so we're so happy you're here, brother. Thanks for your support of the show. And honestly, are you taking clients?
Yes.
Okay, he does mortgages at Lake Michigan Credit Union. So, right, if you have needs, this is a good man who loves hockey, and he's got kids at Michigan Tech, and then here in Grand Blanc, and then 2 in prison. Is my understanding? Yes. I'm just kidding. No one's at Michigan Tech. But I'm pouring. Anyway, all kidding aside, thank you, bro, for your support. What a blessing. And if any of you have mortgage needs and you're around Lake Michigan Credit Union, Brent's your guy. A good man and an honest guy who knows his stuff. I was asking questions, and I'm not really smart enough to ask stupid questions. That's what's a little embarrassing. Like, when you mortgage, do you have to pay money sometimes? Like, it turns out, yes. And it turns out if you want to mortgage your house, you have to own it. Yeah, that's a big deal because I've tried to mortgage other people's houses just to save me some money. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Today's topic is kind of wild. And I know I'm going to get emotional because A, I'm an emotional person, but B, this is a big deal, and it really reveals kind of some of the rot in our media and in academia, and we're going to talk about it a little. But first, can I say hello to Cam Hendrickson? Okay. Cam Hendrickson is a former college pitcher, so A, he's going to heaven. Like, he could murder 3 people and God would still be like, it's fine. You played baseball. And it is a holiday for baseball lovers, is what Cam is saying. And Cam, you're right. And I don't know if you know this, but when we interviewed Dr. Lee on this show, he was a pitcher in college and threw a nasty sinker, I guess, back in the day. Just a nasty. So pitchers and catchers are reporting today, and it's also like some kind of religious holiday with Jesus or something. So what we're going to talk about today is something that just keeps popping up. No matter what, it just keeps popping up because people are insane. And what it is the, historical record of Pope Pius XII. That Pope Pius XII was the Holy Father of the Church of Rome during World War II. And he is honored and revered in Israel for the ridiculous amount of Jewish lives he saved. But some years ago, an ex-seminarian with, I believe, what medical doctors call an axe to grind, wrote a book called Hitler's Pope. And it was a best-selling work of slander that anyone's really aware of to this point. And it was one of those things where it's what people hoped was true, right? A whole segment of society hopes that the church is evil, hopes that the church is no A, and he's bad. And so, what's his name? Dan Brown. Dan Brown reinforces this lie in some of his books, which, again, like, these guys, like Dan Brown, had a record of public speeches about how much he hated Catholics. And so, surprise, he wrote a book with tons of lies about the church, and it was a bestseller and really awfully written. But hey, you can read it quick. And my favorite part, though, is the whole thing that the Vatican has like a pool of assassins. Did you know this? Did you ever read any of these?
No.
We're like, oh yeah, then the Pope sent out assassins. Have you been to Rome? Yeah, they can't order coffee and be sure they're going to get it. You know what I mean? It's they're pretty happy in Italy, and there's not exactly, efficiency isn't the goal. But somehow the church has this pool of assassins. I want to be one, but I don't want to kill anybody. Yeah. So I guess I don't want to be an assassin. I want the title, assassin. Hey, Father Joe, chief exorcist and assassin. How many people have you killed? I wouldn't do that. So anyway, recently, a guy who runs a Twitter account with 1 trillion followers put out another stupid thing that restarted the stupid discussion of Pope Pius XII collaborated with Hitler. And to give you a sense, I just think of this, okay? In my lifetime, 2 of the 4 popes I've experienced, 2 of them were jailed and tortured by Nazis. It's John Paul II and Benedict. And this is just, anyway, I don't even know how to go there. So we're going to start. Where did this come from? That this idea of Hitler's Pope, the idea that Pope Pius XII either was silent or didn't help, okay, or collaborated with Nazis, and we're gonna look at this. So here's the key. Gary Willis and John Cornwell are the 2 guys who really started these slanders. And what's fascinating about their book, Hitler's Pope, is they never mention the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, a Muslim cleric who was called literally Hitler's cleric by his choice, and worked with Hitler. They don't mention him, but they drag Pius into it. So I'm relying mostly on a wonderful article by Rosemary Johnson. But let's do this. What she starts off and points out is that Pius XII is considered by some to be the man without whom Hitler could have never pulled off the final solution. He's been called the silent Pope and Hitler's Pope, and it's always the same thing. Because he was afraid of reprisals, or he was actually a Nazi, or hated Jews, that he didn't condemn Nazism or lift a finger to help. What we want to do first is look at a couple things to help us understand the context of the time. If you've ever seen pictures of the Vatican during World War II, you know that there was a huge white thick line painted all the way around the Vatican. I believe it was about 8 foot wide. And what was it? That was the line of demarcation from occupied Italy and the independent country of the Vatican City. Priests were shot crossing that line. The Nazis literally surrounded the Vatican. Why didn't they invade? Because the whole world would have blown up. Back then, that would have been the thing that pushed a lot of people on Hitler's side against Hitler if he raided the Vatican. So why didn't he condemn them? Well, first of all, we're going to see he did. And we're going to see he consistently did. But we need to remember he was literally, the little 11-acre Vatican City was literally surrounded by Nazis. and I don't mean that figuratively. There were Nazi guards on the other side of the White Line with rifles, and there were snipers trained. There were numerous members of the Vatican who did not leave Vatican City the entirety of World War II because they couldn't. They'd get shot. So there was a sense where Pope Pius was not free to do everything he wanted, for the simple reason of they would have burned down the Vatican, cut off the water, cut off the electricity, and there was no communications outside of the Vatican that wasn't controlled by the Nazis. Hitler actually gave orders that when Italy surrendered to Hitler, to, quote, occupy as soon as possible the Vatican and Vatican City and massacre Pius XII with the entirety of the Vatican City. So it was Hitler's stated battle plan that when Italy surrendered and gave up total control to the Nazis, that they would invade, burn down the Vatican City, kill the Pope and everyone who worked there. So what Pius did have first was the ability to exercise some political influence. 1.2 billion Catholics in the world right now. Pretty good number back then as well. And he did use those. In a book called The Righteous Gentile, which is about Pius XII, written by a Jew, said, quote, Pius XII did not hesitate to make use of these resources to aid the victims of war, especially those hundreds of thousands who, sometimes only by reason of nationality or race, were marked down for death or progressive extinction. This is another one. This one is from the chief rabbi of Rome, the head of all Jews in Rome during World War II. His name was Israel Zoli. Quote, what the Vatican did will indelibly and eternally be engraved in our hearts. Priests and prelates did things that will forever be an honor to all Catholics. Okay. So during the war, what do we know? We know that over 12,000 Jewish refugees were given food and shelter just within the Vatican City itself, and 36 kids were born, Jewish kids were born in the Pope's private apartment. Yeah? So let's look at what he did diplomatically. How are people doing? Is this boring?
Nope.
Okay. Diplomatically, as ruler of the Vatican, he had all kinds of diplomatic connections and he used them. The Pope and his nuncios, ambassadors, were especially active in preventing Axis atrocities, namely Germany, Japan, and Italy for some of the war. Italy changed sides a couple times. The Vatican's diplomatic efforts were not always successful, but they never stopped. He repeatedly and publicly pleaded with the Allies and neutral nations to disregard the immigration restrictions and open their borders to anybody fleeing from Nazis, which countries would not do back then. The Vatican put diplomatic pressure on them, open your borders to people fleeing the Nazis. He urged governments to recognize obviously forged passports. This is hilarious, right? But whenever you, like if somebody's trying to come into your country and it's clearly a forged passport and they're fleeing Nazis, let them in. He begged diplomats to do this and had some successes. Hundreds of letters he sent to Germany protesting the atrocities. Now check this out. At the Nuremberg trials, Ribbentrop, who was Hitler's foreign minister, stated, quote, I know that we had numerous protests from the Vatican. We had a whole desk full of protests from the Vatican. Hitler had given orders to us not to reply, and so most weren't even read. They did have some success in dealing with German allies. They applied tremendous pressure to Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania to stop deporting their Jews to the Nazis. Right? Those countries were allies of the Axis, and they seemingly joyfully were exporting their Jews to the Germans to be Nazis to be executed. And the Vatican put tremendous pressure on these Catholic countries. Threats of forms of excommunication and such. Well, the Pope's nuncio in Hungary publicly stated, quote, "These deportations are unjust in their motive, for it is absolutely inadmissible that men should be persecuted and put to death just because of their racial origin." In 1944, an open telegram from the Pope to the Hungarian regent, he said, after the war, greatly influenced his decision to stop the deportation of over 800,000 Hungarian Jews. Okay, so the guy who was supposed to deport the Jews, 800,000 Hungarian Jews, didn't. And he said in 1944, it's because the Pope told me not to. From 1939 to 1940, and I do love this, the Pope acted as an intermediary between Great Britain and the secret German opposition. Basically, he brokered an agreement with Great Britain for the German rebels that if we pull off killing Hitler, that Britain would give them favorable terms of surrender. Right? The Pope brokered that agreement. You guys kill Hitler, Great Britain will give you favorable peace terms when you surrender. He also took a warning from the German generals that were going to try to assassinate Hitler. They said to the Pope that Hitler's about to invade France and the route he was going to do it, and the Pope sent that information to France. Crazy stuff. Didn't work. I think the French resistance lasted an hour. Is that right? In World War II? Maybe 2. So those are some of the diplomatic things he did. Let's look at what he said, because that's the one most people are lied to about. The Pope was silent. Okay. No, not at all. Some of it is we just don't understand diplomatic language. The way diplomats talk is different than the way humans talk. And the Pope did need to be careful. Any kind of overt condemnation was going to increase persecution of Catholics worldwide. The Dutch bishops, for example, violently expressed their rage at Hitler, and as a result, 40,000 Catholics were arrested and executed in a very short amount of time afterward. This is what the Pope wrote later, that Pope Pius XII. "No doubt a protest would have gained me praise and respect of the civilized world, but it would have submitted the poor Jews to an even worse persecution." So what did he do if he had those restrictions on him? Well, his first encyclical, Summi Pontificatus, was a condemnation of racism and totalitarianism, and he wrote it and released it 2 months after Hitler's first invasion. The Jewish Telegraphic Agency, the AP for the Jews back then, described his encyclical, quote, as, quote, "an unqualified condemnation of racism, totalitarianism, and materialism. Few observers expected such an outspoken document." The Allies made this is a riot, right? The Allies made 88,000 copies of that encyclical and then airdropped them over Germany, right? And they translated them to German because Germany would not allow it to be translated. Pius XII's Christmas messages of 1940, 41, and 42 were so stridently anti-Nazi that, for example, in 1940, the New York Times wrote, quote, "If the Pope in his Christmas message intended to condemn Hitler, he could not have done it more clearly or effectively." New York Times. And they felt the same as Catholics then as they do now. In 1941, the Times wrote, quote, "His Christmas message put him squarely against Hitlerism. He is the lonely voice crying out in the silence of the European continent." New York Times. What? What'd I do?
No, somebody wants to know why there's a chalice on your desk. I was just looking for it. Oh, I see it.
Oh, it's right here. Well, sometimes I celebrate Mass in my spare time, and when I do, I will only use Johnson's chalice. Wouldn't that be hilarious if I had some kind of agreement? Like where I was selling the chalice. Why, it's funny you should bring up this marvelous chalice.
Product placement.
Actually, what it is, someone gave us a broken chalice, and I fixed it, and I'm going to give it to Father Lay. Don't tell him. He doesn't watch the show. Wouldn't it be awesome if he was actually watching? You know what I would do? I would be like, get to work. Okay. How are people doing? Is this boring?
No, they're doing
I think it's boring.
No.
Are you bored? You're not a history guy. Okay. All right. So, so now we know how the Jews and the New York Times felt about the Pope's message, Christmas message. How did the Nazis feel about it? Well, their 1942 Central Security Office typed this, quote, "In a manner never known before, the Pope has repudiated National Socialist New European Order. The Pope does not refer to the National Socialists by name, but his speech is one long attack on everything we stand for. He is virtually accusing the German people of injustice toward the Jews. He makes himself a mouthpiece of the Jewish war criminals." Okay, I hope you're hearing this and going, well, then how does all this Pius XII stuff start? Because people hate Catholics, and they're quite willing to lie about it. I'm serious. Okay, so beyond his words, what did he do? It's kind of funny to say no one is exactly sure of the sheer volume of Jews hidden by the church. Why? Well, again, you know, whenever people refer to Catholics as an organized religion, I'm like, have you been to Rome? It's not organized. I don't like organized religion. Oh, join the Catholic Church. It's run out of Italy. I mean, and everybody likes each other. There's a lot of hugging and a lot of smoking and espressos, but organization? If it was in Germany, it'd be organized. And I hope my Italian family gets this is a compliment, right? I think did I tell them about this when I went and I had to, one of my buddies was working in one of the Vatican offices and I went to spend the day with him. And it was like, okay, what time do we set our alarm for? What do you mean? I'm like, well, if we got to get into work tomorrow, what time we got to get into work? Well, this is always the thing in Italy. Like, and it's a way of saying, in a kind way, that's a really stupid question. So we woke up when we woke up. Woked up? Is that a word? No, woke. We woke up. We awakened when we awakened.
There you go.
And it was literally kind of waltz into the office. And then there was espresso and smoke your brains out, right? And then you talk, how's your family? Good. How's your family? Good. Hey, did you see? And they talk about soccer. And then after that really challenging morning, a piece of paper went from there to there, and there were 3 stamps applied. Ka-thunk. Ka-thunk. And I'm not kidding. Then we did lunch. And then there's a siesta. Seriously, this is true. And then after the siesta, well, actually, we didn't have espressos in the morning. I have cappuccino in the morning. Then we had espressos and smoked our brains out. And a document might have got stamped. And then we went to dinner. That was a day work. Right? I'll never forget. Remember when John Paul II was made Pope and someone said, how many people work at the Vatican? He said about 1/3. That's a true story. Yeah, true story. So anyway.
You're going to get excommunicated.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Every once in a while, someone will say, Father, don't you want to be a bishop? Oh, no. And I make sure. I have a friend who faked being drunk at a party with other priests because he had heard they were thinking of making him a bishop. I mean, look at poor Bishop Earl. Do you want his job? Bishop Carl, when he was our bishop, every day he was like, I want to be a priest again. It's like, yeah, good luck, big fella. I'm going to go run a parish. So what do we know? Get this. This is a fact. This is nuts. Are you ready? 1/3 of the Jewish population in Rome lived in the Vatican during World War II. Snuck them in, forged baptismal certificates, and there you go. The Pope has a summer residence called San Gandolfo, and a bunch of them stayed there. Rabbi, I think it's Lapide. Okay, here's what he wrote. This is hysterical. Quote, in Rome, we saw a list of 155 convents and monasteries which sheltered throughout the German occupation over 5,000 of my brother Jews. 60 lived for 9 months at the Jesuit University. Half a dozen slept in the cellar of the Pontifical Bible Institute. Nearly the entirety of the Italian National Committee of Liberation was hidden in the St. John Lateran, which it's not a saint, by the way. That's a mistake everyone makes. It's just John Lateran. Only a few yards away from the Gestapo headquarters. You gotta love right? Again, it's like, well, where are we gonna hide them? Next to the Gestapo. Because nobody would.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of Jews. The Sons of the Immaculate Conception, who ran the, I'm not kidding, Dermatological Institute of the Immaculate. I think they looked at Mary's skin. They would hospitalize people running from the Nazis, and they would use makeup to make them look sick. Right? So the Nazis would come in and make sure everybody here is not a Jew and is really sick. So these people in perfect health, they would apply makeup to them to make them look sick. And again, forged baptismal certificates. That was one way the Vatican helped a lot. Tons of fake baptismal certificates. Get this, the Vatican commissioned a film to be made, and they had 300 Jews by making them actors in this production. Right? They are artists. Priests and bishops all over Europe hid Jews in churches, religious houses, and other homes, all encouraged by the Pope. Leon Polyakov, a Jewish historian of the Holocaust, wrote, quote, there is no doubt that the secret instructions went out from the Vatican urging churches to intervene in favor of the Jews by every possible means, end quote. So Pius XII even changed canon law. Canon law basically says cloisters, right, which are where nuns or priests or brothers live, where there's nobody lives there except those who vowed. He changed the law so that anybody could live there and so that they could hide Jews. The Vatican supplemented its efforts to hide Jews by forged baptismal certificates and Vatican passports. Since baptized Jews weren't targeted at first, right? At first, the Nazi policy was, well, if you're baptized, then you're not a Jew anymore, and we won't kill you. And then, the bloodthirstiness of it all took over. In Hungary alone, 80,000 baptismal certificates were distributed. And the way we know that is a Red Cross worker. What a jerk. And that, I know this personality type. Basically, protested formally that there was no way there was this many Christians and this few Jews, it doesn't match up with the records, and actually protested it as a violation of the Geneva Convention and tried to bring charges against the Pope. Vatican passports were distributed by the hundreds, and the number of the Pope's, this is kind of funny, his guard, all of a sudden it rose from 300 guards, right? There's 300 Swiss guard. Well, there were 4,000 guards. How did that happen? Well, I guess there were a lot of Swiss kids born that year. All of them were Jews. All of them. When the war ended, this was the letter the Jews in Italy wrote. And I cried when I read this to you earlier today. The delegates of the Congress of the Italian Jewish Communities, held in Rome for the first time since the war, feel it imperative to extend reverent homage to Your Holiness Pius XII and to express the most profound gratitude that animates all Jews for your fraternal humanity toward them during the years of persecution when their lives were endangered by Nazi fascism barbarism. Many times priests suffered imprisonment and were sent to concentration camps and offered their lives to assist Jews in every way. This demonstration of goodness and charity that still animates the just has served to lessen the shame of torture and sadness that afflicted millions of us human beings. Isn't that something? Man. So, again, huge thanks to, let me get to her last name. I can never remember. Isn't this terrible? Sorry. Wow, this is Rosemary Johnson, who wrote this beautiful article. And again, this isn't hard information to get, okay? You can just type. But if you type Hitler's Pope, the first thing you're going to get is the book filled with lies, right? So let me get down to the bottom. In the face of all this, then how can anyone accuse Pius XII of complicity with Hitler? Right? Pius XII literally set into motion the entire machinery of the Catholic Church to aid the Jews. He employed the Vatican's diplomatic relations to intervene. His public statements, his secret actions inspired thousands of Catholics to follow in his footsteps, such that a French newspaper wrote it this way, quote, "Every Catholic family in France now shelters a Jew." The wartime vicar of Christ did everything he could to help. At his death, get this, Pius XII's death, so many tributes were made to him that the New York Times decided the only thing they could do was list the authors. They couldn't put all the letters in. So they just put the names of the authors who wrote letters. In the Negev, which is southeast of Jerusalem, I've been there, there's a forest. Remember, Jews can't build statues. We would build statues, right? Christians, we'd be like, here's a statue of, Magic Johnson. They can't do that. So what did they do? They planted a tree for every life saved by Pope Pius XII, and they call it the Forest of the Righteous. How many trees? 800,000. And you believe that? They directly attribute 800,000 lives saved by Pope Pius XII, and they planted 800,000 trees in the Forest of the Righteous. The former chief rabbi of Rome, Israel Zoli, quote, "What the Vatican did will be indelibly and eternally praised in our hearts, engraved in our hearts." If you go now to Castel Gandolfo, where the Pope's summer residence is, you'll see a huge cross. The cross was given to Pius XII by the Jewish refugees that he hid. So how does this happen? If this is true, how does a book called Hitler's Pope happen? Well, there's nobody who hates Catholics more than an ex-Catholic, right? And that book was written by one. And there will always be, when the devil attacks, and I think I shared this with you earlier in the show, earlier in the year, last year. The tactic the evil one always uses is he doesn't attack you where you're weak. He attacks you where you're strong. I've shared with you, I know I have, that priests have slandered me to the bishop before. And praise God, it always worked out. But you know what they said? I wasn't working hard enough. Because that's the lie I'll believe. I never think I'm working hard enough, right? You know the type. So all you got to do is tell me you could do more, and I'll try. And the Lord is healing that in me. But that's what they attacked, was my work ethic. Isn't that remarkable? And now it's years later, I'm able to look and go, that was sick, right? That was messed up. I know objectively. I was working 17 hours a day sometimes. I went to the hospital a few times being exhausted. Where did they hit me? With your work ethic. This is what the devil does, guys. And I need us each to think about the things people say to us. Now, don't discount. Obviously, I'm not above criticism. I've got tons to work on. I'm a sinner. I'm fallible. But the devil works differently than the Lord in correcting us. When the Lord wants to correct us, and he does, it lifts us up. It literally lifts us up. You can do better. When the devil corrects us, he humiliates and he uses lies, and the result is we feel like crap. God never accuses. Right? Check it out. Read your Bible. What is the name of the devil? What is the name the devil is given? The accuser. That's what his name is. The accuser. And John saw the end of the world, right? The coming of Christ and everything. What does it say? It says that Jesus declares, now the accuser of our brothers is cast out. So why attack him for this? Because wicked people do wicked things. And lies are always, always easier to believe. I generally think when people attack us, they're revealing themselves, right? Like, for example, if you look at me doing something you don't understand and it bothers you, you come to me and say, Father, I don't know why you did this. And that's lovely. But if you start putting motives on why I did it, all you're learning is what your motives are. Right? We see through our own lens. And I catch myself doing this, guys. One of the ways I've become cognizant of the numerous ways sin works in my life is, what do I assume other people's motivations are? And whatever I assume they are, I've just learned what mine are. You get me? So this is, again, a snapshot, guys. But this lie is so perfidious and so ubiquitous that one of my buddies who's a Jew told me, there's Jews in Israel who believe this now. And I'm like, why does he have a forest? Why is there this forest of the righteous? And even now, Yad Vashem, which is the National Holocaust Museum in Israel, they still won't put anything up to him. Right? I mean, there's a few notices, but it's not like, frankly, don't take this wrong. What Schindler did was extraordinary. Now, times literally almost 100,000, and you have what Pius XII did. Pius gets a little thing. Schindler has this huge thing. What is it? Well, so much mud got thrown against the wall that it became hard to sort out. It's like our political situation now. I can never tell what's true. I can't. Right? Because liars lie, and they're really, really, really good at it. So, do we have any questions? Let me look before I keep. Oh, great. Okay, so what I'll do now is come up and look at the questions. Okay, at the time of the Nazi occupation of Italy, did the Pope have the protection of what is now the elite Swiss Guard? Yeah, those are some bad men. The way the Swiss Guard came into their job, in a sense. Actually, this is kind of fascinating little snapshot of history. If I go too far afield, shut me down.
Yep.
Okay. So in Europe, the Swiss were known as the best mercenaries in the world for two reasons. This was back in the day, right? One is the Swiss had a system, the way their culture worked. If you have four boys, Dad was farmer. How do you know? Because everybody's dad was a farmer, right? In Switzerland. That's how it worked. There was no other jobs. When Dad died or moved the farm on, the law only allowed the oldest boy to get it. He couldn't divide it between his sons, right? And there's some wisdom to that. We can get into that later if you want. So now what do those other three boys do? Well, what do you do when you have people who didn't just learn to farm, but learn to farm in a mountainous, rough place? Well, you just found yourself some of the toughest human beings on the planet. And Switzerland had a noted military history at the point. So the Swiss took all of those boys and said, we're now called the Swiss Army, and we're for rent. And there was two things you needed to know about them. They were ferocious fighters, and they were, what do you say? You couldn't buy them. They couldn't be bought out from under you. Their yes meant yes, and their no meant no. Does this make sense? Integrity. So the Pope hired about 300 of them. And in the meantime, so their job was to protect the Pope. Well, in the meantime, this is so convoluted. Gosh, how to say it quick. A mercenary army of another sort was under orders to be outside the Vatican and just kind of prevent anybody from getting through. They were there to be a threat. Back then, nobody would have ordered the attack of the Vatican. So the Vatican was safe. Everything's fine. That army's there just to threaten and scare. Here's the problem. That army was a mercenary army. And by European law, if you went 5 days without pay, you were free to do whatever you wanted as a mercenary. Isn't that interesting? So if you were a mercenary and they didn't pay you for 5 days, you got to peace out and go get your own wages. And that's literally what they did. And they marched into Rome. And thousands and thousands of these men went in there because the idea was what? Well, if we can capture the Pope, we can hold him hostage. Or if we kill him, we can get all the stuff. Those 300 Swiss, every one of them died, holding back this massive army while the Pope fled. And they saved his life. And that's when the Vatican made an agreement with the Swiss army. We will always count on you. And that's when the Swiss made an agreement. You can always count on us. Fascinating stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Swiss were some bad, bad men. Their uniforms were not designed by Michelangelo, by the way. Everyone always said, oh, they're designed by Michelangelo. No, they weren't. Those were just regular people clothes back then. Seriously. Okay. Anyway.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Isn't that goofy? I mean, can you imagine like dancing around like that? And not just dancing around in these colorful foofies, but also knowing you're one of the toughest SOBs on the planet. So why did I go into that? Oh, yeah, he had the Swiss Guard, and it was 300, as it always is. But as I said earlier, suddenly it was 4,000 because just every Jew he could, he put in the Swiss Guard. Said, no, they're Swiss. They're Catholics. Those Swiss Guard guys, again, they dress funny, but there are few. Their hand-to-hand training comes from the frickin' Mossad. Excellent marksmen. John Paul II gave them guns that you can't see, by the way. I just wonder where they put them in there. Talk about. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
I do.
You're such a good teacher. Oh, wow. Okay. You're desperate.
There's
You
a
know,
question.
no, thank you. Say thank you. I can't tell you what that means to me because again, I get so insecure. I think this stuff fascinates me, and I can see you at home going, "Do you know when he's gonna start? Do you know when he's gonna start like talking about interesting things?" We love you, Father. Okay, how do we convince Catholics that ecumenical dialogue is a good and not to be feared? Okay, ecumenical. Ecumenical dialogue. Come, Holy Spirit. I always mess this up. Ecumenical is with other Christians. Okay. So ecumenical dialogue is Catholics talking officially, not just like, hey, Bob, officially talking with other Christian religions to try to increase goodwill and mutual understanding. How do we convince Catholics that it's a good thing and not to be feared? I don't know. The biggest thing we're going to run into, oh gosh, I'm going to get murdered for this. Hear me out. Let me say the whole thing before you freak, okay? In a weird way, in my opinion, this is the opinion of one dude who's not too bright, okay? The biggest challenge to ecumenism is that the ecumenism that happened because of the pro-life movement messed us up. When I was a kid, the pro-life movement was all Catholic. There were no Protestants anywhere, right? I never saw one. Once they entered the fray, they entered with great passion and, frankly, a lot of money. And their approach was very, very different. The pro-life movement shifted from a social movement to a political one, in my opinion. Okay, but I was there. I don't mean that I was there. And not only that, tactics changed. Like we all stopped going to abortion clinics to help when it became mounds of Christians screaming abortion is murder, right? And trying to block people from going in. We had great success. I saw it a million times just with Catholics who had tables who said, we'll help. And literally taking in girls, pregnant young women. That was the pro-life movement when I was a kid. And at some point it just became Republican. That's it, right? In the same way that like a Democrat might say, well, I voted for a Democrat, so I'm caring for the poor. And it's ludicrous because it's never seemed to help. In the same way, the movement shifted to, well, I voted for a guy who says he's anti-abortion. I done my part. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, for the first time literally in human history, 2,000-year-old church, you have this phenomena of Catholic fundamentalists, which is a weird creature. I don't mean that cruel. Catholicism and fundamentalism do not mix. But all of a sudden, you had Catholics who were fundamentalists. I think in the end, that made people like me a bit afraid of ecumenism. And not that it was a bad thing, but it was like, well, let's fight the other battles first. But as I get older, I more and more kind of pine for some kind of ecumenical dialogue. Just because, like, well, you were here when Pastor Williams was on the show. Honestly, if he's not fighting for sainthood, I don't know who is. And he's made me a better Christian. And I have friends who are, like, when I was down in Hudson, I mean, there were Protestant ministers down there who wouldn't pray with me because I'm Catholic, but they'd talk to me. And then I had guys like Pastor West, who was just an angel. Again, he's one of these cats. If he's not fighting for sainthood, I don't know who is. Pastor West Rowan, just a beautiful guy. Brad was at the Methodist. I mean, these were men I got to pray with. And women, too. They have female pastors in some of these churches. I got to pray with them. And it was glorious. I don't know. You know, when I was a young priest, a lot of ecumenical meetings felt to me like Protestant ministers making digs. And me, you know, and us sitting there and me going, behave. Okay. Are Swiss Guards Catholic? Yeah, they have to be. They have to be Catholics in good standing. Truly. I think they are asking if that is a prerequisite. You have to know multiple languages. I want to say 7, but do not quote me. Okay, it might be that I've messed up the number. They need to know a lot of languages. They need to be proficient in hand-to-hand combat and in different tactics. They have to be devout, practicing Roman Catholics. If they're married, it has to be a marriage within the church. Is that helpful? Yeah. These are some bad men. I played basketball. Did I tell you this? I played basketball with them on the roof of the NAC. It was a riot. There's some tough dudes. You go to post up a guy and you're like, who put the cement wall? No, that's a human. He's made of steel and he could kill and eat you.
Do they have to be recommended?
I don't know. I know your pastor has to write a letter. I do know a couple times there's been some scandals. Do you know about this?
No.
Where these guys just get liquored up and go break things. Yeah, they are Swiss. You know what I mean? It's like, what did Grandma say? Swiss are Germans who could read? Was that? Yeah. So they still got that thing, and every once in a while, seriously, you'd hear about them like trashing stuff. In fact, you know what's crazy? I think if you give me a moment, I can remember the name of the first head of the Swiss Guard. Isn't that weird? I'm not 100% sure, but I think it'll come to me if it comes to me. But he's dead, right? All those guards died fighting to save the Pope, and it was literally they just wouldn't quit. And they kept backing the battle into narrow corridors, and then the Pope ran along the Vatican roof and escaped on the Tiber River. But every one of those beautiful men died, gave up their lives saving the Pope. Do you see Catholic fundamentalism as stemming from the SSPX? No, I really don't. If that's a different form of Catholic fundamentalism. Ooh, boy, what a good question. Give me a second, okay? The Catholic You're welcome. The Catholic fundamentalism that I'm referring to, and I hope we're being uber clear, all you are hearing is my opinion. I may be way off, okay? Are Catholics who read the Bible as a fundamentalists, okay? What would be an example of Catholic fundamental? Ooh, okay, here's a good one to get killed on. Let me see. Wives, submit to your husbands as is proper in the Lord. Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved his bride, the church. Okay. A Catholic fundamentalist takes that passage and says the husband is head of the house. And I've met these people. I promise. I've met them. And that means the wife only does what her husband allows. He is totally in charge. and it's called the doctrine of submission. That was a big thing in charismatic Catholic circles for a long time, and I think it still is. That's the kind of fundamentalism I think that you are describing from SSPX would be a fundamentalism in regard to the law of the church, not the word of God. That's my opinion. Yikes, I'm going to get murdered. These people have free time to write letters. And it's never, Father, I disagree with you. You heretic, you hate God. You know, it's like, who told? I had a great thing going here. The money, the chicks. Really, who does a Catholic priest scam? You know what I mean? Do a prosperity gospel scam if you're in it for the money. Anyway, do you know the age group of the Swiss Guards? No. It seemed to me they were young. I don't know, 20s? I mean, there's older ones, of course, that run it. And again, those old guys look like roughnecks. I'm serious. And I'm a priest, so if they see you, they salute. Do you know that?
No.
If they see a nun or a priest, whatever they're doing, they stop and salute with that pike that they carry. And so I kept walking back and forth. Like, hey, guys. You know, get one step, stop. Oh, you saluted. What is Catholic fundamentalism? Well, that's the whole idea that there are Catholics who read the Bible and believe you are... I'm so bad at this. We believe that the Bible tells us the truth about God, about ourselves, but we also try to read the Bible in its historical context, its social context, and its time context, as well as the context of the whole chapter. So I think I told you that story about a buddy of mine who's a fundie, and for years we were talking, and I couldn't figure this out. No matter what topic came up, if you talked about can non-Christians know God, he would always say, Scripture says we have no excuse. Well, here's the crazy part. So you go look up that line he keeps quoting. They have no excuse. Well, the context of it is the opposite. It's Paul saying, basically about a group of people, they've had the gospel preached to them. They get it. They just choose not to accept it. That's a different thing than a boy born in a Muslim country where Christianity's illegal and growing up and loving God as best he can, as best he knows how, because he's never had any other reality presented to him. It's a totally different thing. It's a totally different thing altogether. And then you guys are supposed to say it's a totally different thing. Do you remember this from Airplane? It's a totally different thing. Thank you. Do you remember this from Airplane? It's a totally different thing altogether. And then the whole crowd, it's a totally different thing. Whew. I'm tired. How are we doing? Any more questions from you people? Carrie's got another one while she's typing it. If you have any about this topic, let me know. Get them on there. If I don't know the answer, I'll make it up. I'll be like, well, yes, that was Admiral Schuvengoggen Hogan Magen. Do they have a sort of secret service branch? Nope, that's them. That's them. See, the Swiss Guard are the whole banana. They have a police force at Vatican, right? Because it's a country. They have a post office. They even have a little train. Did you know that? I have a little train. It runs in a tunnel. It does. They have a little train down there.
Really?
Little choo-choo. And it's in the tunnels under the Vatican. And
There's the mail.
Yeah, and the mail and diplomatic stuff. Like, do you know, like diplomatically, the Vatican is considered one of the better intelligence gathering organisms in the world? Last I knew. I don't know. It's been years. But like when George Bush II, the second one, said we're going to go into Iraq to get the weapons of mass destruction, Pope Paul II's ambassador literally wrote to him and went, no, they left a week ago. Told him what road. Isn't that crazy? You just didn't believe him. But he was right. Seriously. They left a week ago. Why? There's Catholics everywhere. Seriously. Think about it. Especially in Iraq at the time. Because what you got to remember, this is nuts, but stick with me. Every Iraqi I've talked to said no Iraqi Christian had a better friend than Saddam Hussein. You know that? Yeah. He said Christians were the roses in his garden of thorns. Isn't that something? But Why did he protect Christians? Well, part of it was just his sick genius. Boy, I could go on and on. Darn it. I know too many weird things. Is fundamentalist Catholic and traditional Catholic the same thing? No. In fact, they would tend to be very opposite. If we say traditional Catholic, I consider myself one. I do. I really do believe I'm a traditionalist. The definition of that keeps moving farther and farther right. I don't know how much I've moved. So I don't know, like when I was a young priest, my God, they were always yelling at me for being too traditional. And now the young priests yell at me for not being traditional enough. And I don't think I've changed that much. I really don't. Yeah. Was St. Pius Church in Germany or Australia? Oh, where was he born?
Austria.
I said Australia, didn't I?
Yeah.
Where was he born? Let me look. I wrote this down.
Pius' church in Germany or Austria? That's the question.
I'm not sure. He was born actually in the Kingdom of Italy. It wasn't Italy yet. It was the Kingdom of Italy. March 2nd, 1876. And he died at Castel Gandolfo in 1958. He outlived Hitler. Yeah. Do you have a dog sitter for Marius when you go? Yes, my beautiful nephew Casey. Now, if you want to be backup, right, you got to let me know. Seriously. But here's my requirements. You will snuggle with him. You will tell him woosh do boosh do boo like that. There needs to be some treats. And then you know what I do for his meals? This is so embarrassing. I do a thing. So we do about a 3/4 scoop of food, and then we put an egg, and then we stir it. We want to make sure we get that egg spread all through the food. Don't just do this half. And then you add some water, and then you stir it up so it gets soft because he only has half his teeth, right? And then you put it down and you tell him boosh do boo boo or some variation. I sing to him a lot, don't I? Poor dad. I have 1,000,000 Marius songs. Oh, my Marius, he's my Marius, he's my Marius dog. Oh, my Marius, he's my Marius, he's my Marius dog. That's a song.
That is a song.
He's so smelly and he's so sweet and he's got the hairy feet. I got 1,000,000 of these. You need to sing to him. He needs to know that he is special and pretty. And you also need to understand that he is a demon. He will do what he wants when he wants. If you call him, he'll come if he wants to. That's what kind of discipline I do. So those are the requirements. Will you tell him he's beautiful? Oh, and you can't leave him alone for too long. I'll freak, won't I? Remember? They're like, oh, I'll watch him. Yeah, we work all day. No! He needs to be the center of your universe. So, I babbled a lot toward the end, but you brought up Marius, so I do feel like it's your fault. Yeah. If you live in Grand Blanc and you want to be a backup for spoiling my boogly, I shall allow it. But you do have some qualifications. I need to hear your singing voice. I need a video of you mixing eggs into dog food, because what if they do it wrong?
Well, they can't be any nicer than me, because I don't want to lose my 10th spot.
Yeah. Well, here's the key.
lose the
Seriously,
10th
do you know
spot.
that every day when I'm on vacation, I'll be like, I wonder what he's doing. I pine for him.
Well, they'll send you a video, I'm sure.
I'll pine for him. And I'm always sure while I'm gone is when he's going to die. Is this normal?
I don't know, because anytime I watch him,
Yeah.
I'm worried that he's going to die.
Yeah. Well, I would blame you. Like, if he had a heart attack and died of old age and, like, they could conclusively prove it. And, like, Father, nothing could be done. I'll be like, Carrie. Well, he's going to die soon. That's the thing I keep thinking. I'm like, my God, he's old. I don't know. So, yeah. Well, okay, there we go. And all we can do is pray the bishop didn't watch this, because then he'll cancel tomorrow. But what I suspect is, I don't know how biographical he's going to get. But I want you to know, I got some backup history questions for him in terms of Michigan Catholic history. We talked about this, and I told you, truly, I had phenomenal history professors in my life.
I have a question.
Oh, hit me.
Are you going to do the speed round with him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. You can't tell. He's very playful.
Okay.
I know it doesn't come across that way because probably when you run into him, he's all business.
Yes.
But when I was in seminary, he was one of the priests, one of the only priests, who would get a deck of cards and sit with us and play cards. We played volleyball on, I think, Wednesday nights. And he came out and played volleyball with us. He's just a dude. He's a good dude. And he is ferociously competitive. We might have to, yeah, can you tell? Can you? Well, he comes from a big family. That's a big family thing. You either become totally docile or a murderer. Those are your two choices. All right. So tomorrow, we're going to see Uncle Earl. And I pray you guys just send him tons of love. It is so hard to be a bishop. I'm serious. You have no idea. Like, take whatever a pastor does and multiply that by how many parishes exist. Yeah. And you know, for every 300 people, one of them's crazy. Right? And they all go to church. Yeah. So, what do you say I do the closing prayer now, and I'll see you beautiful people tomorrow when I'm in Lansing with Bishop Earl, superstar action figure, Crozier, sold separately. Crozier's the little hooky thing, and then Miter's the hat, which you can make into a puppet. Did you know this? You can make an alligator puppet. I do not recommend this. I know a priest who did it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Jesus, thank you for Pope Pius XII and for the beautiful, life-saving work he did. Thank you for all of those who, in their lifetime, expressed gratitude for him. And Lord, so many lies are said about him, and we ask you to forgive those who spread those lies unknowingly, and heal those who spread them knowingly. What we ask for today at the beginning of Lent is the kind of courage he had, where we will do what's right even if nobody ever knows, because you'll know, and you're who loves us best. For all the things we worry about, the situations in our life, for all the people that we fret about, we give them to you now, Lord. And we love you so much, and we trust you. And may Almighty God bless all of you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And a big shout out and a hoorah to Brent. And don't forget, seriously, if you're in Genesee County, right? Genesee County? Anywhere, really. I mean, if you're in Texas, it's going to be weird, but you can do it. And you're looking for some kind of mortgage, it's Lake Michigan Credit Union, and ask for Brent. Yes. He's the frickin' man. And thanks for joining us today, brother, and eating fish.
Thank you.
Yeah, and God bless you guys. Have a beautiful day. Is it over?
No, it's never over.